Hey guys, tonight, we walk barefoot into a world where the dirt remembers everything, the leaves whisper diagnoses, and the breeze could very well be a prescription. You're stepping onto the warm red earth of Australia long before there were clinics, before there were chemists, before the word medicine meant something with a barcode. Here every stone, every bird call, and every leaf has a purpose. And usually it's healing you. You press your foot into dry, cracked soil and realize it's not just dirt, it's country capital C. And country in the worldview of many Aboriginal Australians is alive. It watches, it breathes, it even feels you. In fact, if you disrespect it, it might feel you a bit too hard. Think dehydration, venomous surprise, or a stubborn spirit that sticks to your shadow. Yeah, you probably won't survive this without a guide. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far this little circle of curiosity reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start your walk near what feels like a forgotten track, but it's really a map written in bark and shadow. Your guide, an elder with eyes older than worry, nods toward the land. It knows you're here, they say. It'll look after you, if you walk the right way. You follow. They point at a patch of tea tree. That one, they murmur, fixes skin when it splits from heat or rot. Mainstream science now agrees tea tree oil has antimicrobial properties potent enough to make modern antiseptics blush. But here, it's more than that. It's tied to a story about a spirit who wept sap into the earth to stop a plague. Then there's the eucalyptus. You've seen it before, probably as a candle scent or a sore throat lozenge. But here, crushed and boiled its leaves, open up lungs tight from smoke or sadness. You inhale its menthol kiss and feel space inside your chest you didn't know was missing. And the wattles, those golden puffballs dancing in the breeze. Some of them have seeds packed with protein. Others are mashed into poultices. One variety toxic unless properly roasted and leached in water for days. So, don't freestyle bush medicine. That's the thing. Healing here isn't just about what plant to use, it's when, how, and why. The same leaf that cures you in one season might curse you in another. Timing is everything, and that knowledge doesn't live in textbooks. It lives in ceremony. Speaking of which, you reach a clearing. Your guide says it's a birthing place, only women come here. But tonight, you're just passing through quiet as the stars. A soft breeze stirs the spinifex, and it feels heavier here, as if generations are watching, as if your own breath just joined a much older rhythm. Historians still argue whether these healing practices emerged from trial and error over millennia, or were divinely handed down through dreaming stories. The truth both may be, or neither. Because in Aboriginal medicine, logic and lore are like two kangaroos hopping the same trail, different styles, same direction. And sometimes the plants come to the people. There's a fringe tale told in hushed laughter around some campfires about a man bitten by a death adder who was saved when a wallaby dropped chewed bark onto his wound and bounced away without explanation. No one ever found the wallaby again. Make of that what you will. But stories like that matter. They hold truth, even if it's slippery. Because this isn't just about ingredients, it's about relationship. Country teaches, but only if you listen like it's your grandmother humming you to sleep. As night folds deeper around you, the elder gathers a handful of leaves and places them in a hollowed coolamon bowl. They light a small fire. The leaves begin to smolder, releasing a fragrant smoke. This is a welcome to country, a sacred invitation for spirit and skin to walk side by side. You waft the smoke toward yourself the way they do. It's not for show. It's for safe passage, for cleansing, for anchoring your soul where your feet now stand. You close your eyes. For a second, you swear you hear the crackle of time itself. And just like that, you're in it. The medicine, the memory, the land. You walk a little slower now, more aware of the path, more reverent. You step over roots like they matter because they do. Each one might be a cure. Each one might be a story. Each one might be the reason you make it through the next dry season without blistered feet or a coughing fit that won't quit. That's the lesson of Section 1. Healing begins with respect. Respect for country, respect for story, and definitely respect for the plants. Because they've been here longer than your grandest guess, and they don't care if you believe in them or not. But if you do, they just might believe in you back. The fire's not out yet. Smoke rises slow and silvery, curling around your ankles and drifting into your nose like a ghost, remembering your name. You're still standing in the clearing, but something's shifted. The air thicker, the silence heavier. You're not alone. And that's not spooky, it's sacred. Welcome to the world of smoke and ceremony, where healing doesn't start with swallowing anything, but with standing still. The elder picks up more crushed eucalyptus and some dried emu bush, leaves tossing them into the flame. The scent sharpens, earthy, minty, slightly bitter, like old wisdom and fresh regret. This, they say, clears sickness. From skin, from spirit, from the places in between. You move closer to the smoke, letting it wash over you. It tickles your cheeks, clings to your clothes, swirls into your hair. You smell like bushfire now, but the good kind. The kind that's deliberate, the kind that cleans, not destroys. This ritual isn't just a vibe, it's foundational. Across many Aboriginal nations, smoke ceremonies are performed to purify, to welcome to farewell, to mark transitions. Some say the smoke carries messages to the ancestors. Others say it repels bad spirits, or at least distracts them long enough for you to slip past, unnoticed. Here's a mainstream fact, for you researchers have confirmed that certain native plants used in smoke ceremonies release antimicrobial compounds when burned. It's science, but also not the point. The ceremony works whether the lab agrees or not. You're told to walk slowly through the smoke twice. Once for the body, once for the soul. The elder doesn't chant, they hum. The sound is low and rhythmic, syncing weirdly well with your heartbeat. It's like the world has a pulse, and for once, you're not out of step with it. Then, because ceremony isn't just about doing, it's about watching you sit. You listen. You inhale more than air. You inhale context. The fire pops, and the scent shifts again. You're ready now, says the elder. To be seen by country. But just before you leave the clearing, they glance at you sideways. Not all smoke is welcome, they say. Burn the wrong plant, invite the wrong thing. You blink. Like what they don't answer. Just smile. You learn fast out here, not every mystery is for solving. Some are for surviving. As you walk away from the smoke, you feel clearer. Not like you understand more, but like you care less about understanding and more about being part of it. That's a kind of healing too, right? A little further along the trail, you reach another gathering, smaller, quieter. A woman is seated by a fire with 3 children around her. They're grinding something with smooth stones, maybe bark, maybe seed. The woman adds a pinch of ash, mixes it with animal fat, and paints a thick line across each child's forehead. You watch. Curious. She glances up. To keep the fever away, she says softly. You almost ask how that works, but you don't. You're learning. One of the kids points at a beetle scuttling by. The woman nods amused. That one's sacred to this place. Brings dreams. Good ones. Quirky fact, in some regions, beetles, butterflies, and even moths were believed to carry messages from the dreaming. Not metaphorically, literally. If a particular insect landed on you, it meant something. And if it didn't, that meant something too. You sit near the fire. They let you. No one talks for a long time, and somehow that says more than a lecture ever could. You're starting to feel the pattern now. Ceremony isn't always grand. It's not always smoke and flame and booming voices. Sometimes it's grinding bark in a bowl, humming softly, painting a fever mark, or noticing a beetle at the right moment. Ceremony is slow, and that's intentional. The world rushes. This doesn't. Historians still argue whether Aboriginal smoke ceremonies should be classified as medicine, spiritual practice, or cultural event. Honestly, it's all three. And if you try to separate them, you miss the point. Like peeling the skin off a fruit and declaring it no longer edible. Later that night, you lie on a bed of soft leaves beneath a paperbark tree. You're told it's good for dreams. Smells sweet like honey and old stories. Someone places a small stone under your pillow. Protection, they whisper. You believe them. Before you drift off, you remember a fringe tale told by an elder earlier about a man who walked into the bush filled with sadness, sat in smoke for 7 days straight, and walked out a laughing healer. Did it happen? Maybe. Was it real? Definitely. Your eyelids get heavy. A warm breeze blows through the paperbark, carrying the last of the ceremonial smoke across your skin. It smells like eucalyptus and peace. You breathe it in and let it fill all the small sore corners inside you. That's the ceremony. That's the smoke. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't need to. It just works. You wake before the sun, head still fuzzy from dream threads that feel borrowed. Not yours, not entirely. They smelled like eucalyptus and fire. Someone in them was singing, but not with a voice. More like with light. You sit up, brushing leaves from your arms, and notice the paperbark still curls protectively above you, like a watchful parent. The elder is already awake. You swear they never sleep. They're drawing something in the dirt with a stick-long curved circles dots. Storylines, they say. Dreaming tracks. This is how we remember. Dreaming. Or Chukurpa, or Al-Sharinga, depending on the language group. But no matter the word, the meaning pulses, with the same force the foundational stories of the world stitched into the land, the people, the plants, the air, the blood. It's not dreams the way you know them. This is not REM sleep and messy symbolism. This is memory ancestry law, and yes, medicine. You lean in as the elder smooths the earth and draws again. Every sickness has a story. Sometimes you don't need the plant. You need the story. And suddenly that headache you've been quietly ignoring, not so much a biology problem anymore. Maybe it's a disconnection problem. Maybe your soul wandered off the path a little while you were busy doom scrolling. Dreaming stories aren't bedtime tales. They're lived instructions. They explain why the river flows, why the wallaby limps, and why that one tree always flowers too early. And embedded in these stories are healing truths, what to use, when to use it, and what not to even look at, unless you want a rash in 3 dimensions. One mainstream historical fact that surprises most people. Some of the dreaming paths actually match ancient trade routes. We're talking vast distances, thousands of kilometers across deserts and forests. Healing knowledge traveled with the people, and sometimes even faster than gossip. Which, let's be honest, is impressive. But here's the twist: the stories don't always make sense in your language, or in any language. They're encoded in metaphor, rhythm, gesture. You don't just hear them, you dance them, paint them, sing them into bark and skin, like your GPS the elder jokes with a shrug. Except ours also cures warts. They're only half joking. You follow one of these tracks, feet crunching lightly over dry ground. The elder's steps are deliberate, pausing every so often to point. Here a snake made this bend in the creek, or that hill that's the back of an old spirit who slept too long. You nod along, but then they stop you. This part's medicine, they whisper, tapping a patch of soil with their toe. You squint. It looks like dirt. But it's not. It's memory. A place where a healer once stood long ago, curing grief with smoke and song. No structure, no plaque, just presence. Still alive in the soil if you know how to feel it. You're starting to. Historians still argue whether the dreaming is historical myth, psychological archetype, or social structure. But again, if you're asking that, you're missing the whole ceremony. It's all those things. And also not just things at all. Quirky side note. There's a tale from the desert mob about a dreaming ancestor who healed people by licking their shadow. No, not their body, their shadow. Walk into the light wrong and boom, you're better. Or worse. Depends on what kind of week the spirit's having. There's something elegant in that, though. That illness might not be inside your body. It might be following you around. A dark echo. And maybe healing just means stepping into the light the right way. You continue walking now beside a dry riverbed. The elder points to a specific bend and says, "A boy drowned here a long time ago. His family sang to the water until it gave him back." You open your mouth to ask how, then close it. You're catching on. The land listens. That's the premise of dreaming. That the hills and rivers and fire-scorched plains aren't background, they're responsive. Tell them a story, and they might tell one back. Which brings you to a small rock overhang, where ochre paintings sprawl like graffiti from a better world. Hands animals swirling lines. The elder touches one, this one's medicine. Shows how to fix bone that won't sit straight. You stare. How do you know that they just look at you? Because we remember. There's no ego in it. No superiority. Just a matter-of-fact truth that this knowledge has outlived more empires than you've read about. You sit beneath the painting and you feel it. A kind of buzzing, not in your ears, but in your bones. Like something ancient is sinking up inside you. You suddenly remember that weird twitch in your shoulder, the one from sitting hunched over your screen every night. It's gone now. Was it the story, the land, the smoke from before? Maybe all of it, maybe none. Healing in the dreaming isn't about fixing a part of you. It's about stitching you back into the whole, putting you in your place, not in a mean way, but in the comforting cosmic you belong here way. You lie back on the cool rock and trace the ochre lines with your eyes. They blur as your lashes droop. And just before you slip into sleep again, you hear the elder whisper, almost teasing, "Don't forget your shadow." Someone might be licking it. You wake up staring at bark. Not just any bark, this one's peeling in long curls, revealing a fresh, pale surface beneath. The light slants in sideways, soft and gold, and the air is thick with that just before rain scent. You sit up slowly. The elder's already crouching nearby, hands deep in a mess of green. Plants with purpose, they murmur, not looking up. Every one of them. You inch closer, watching as they sort through their collection, some leaves long and thin, others stubby with waxy skin, a few covered in fine fuzz, like they're wearing old pajamas. Each one is deliberate. Each one knows something you don't. The first one they hold up is a melaleuca, or paper bark. You already slept under it, but now you learn it's also a bandage and insect repellent. And if you shred it just right, a tea bag. They hand you a pinch and nod toward your mouth. You hesitate. They smirk. You'll live. Maybe. You chew, it's bitter, like betrayal and regret. But your mouth feels cleaner, somehow wider. Your sinuses tingle. That apparently is the point. Plants aren't just ingredients. They're personalities. Some are stubborn, only blooming when they feel like it. Some are generous, growing even after fire. And some, well, you'd better ask nicely before picking or they'll turn on you. Not metaphorically, itch fever or worse. You move through a thicket with the elder, learning each plant like a handshake. There's centipede grass crushed into a paste for cuts. Sandalwood seeds sometimes sucked to soothe sore throats. Snotty gobble, yes, that's a real name, whose fruit is edible if mildly ridiculous. They all have stories. Some are healing stories. Some are cautionary tales with rashes. A mainstream historical fact. In 1770, when Captain Cook landed on Australia's east coast, his ship's botanist, Joseph Banks, was astonished by the sheer number of unfamiliar plants used by local Aboriginal groups for medicinal purposes. He cataloged them, but misunderstood many. What looked like weeds to him were actually lifelines. Take MU bush, the elder shows you a twig, gray-green and unassuming. When burnt and inhaled, it eases the pain of dental work. How did they figure that out? Trial-error dreaming historians still argue whether this botanical knowledge came from observation or divine guidance. But really, if your great-great-great-great-grandmother appeared in a vision and told you to chew a root and it worked, you'd probably listen too. You arrive at a grove of acacia, the famed wattles. Yellow blooms like little explosions, but you're not here for flowers. The elder cracks open a pod and shows you seeds. Ground roasted sifted, high in protein. Survival food, but also medicine when mixed with ash. The line between nourishment and cure paper thin out here. Then there's mudjala, the bush carrot. Not sweet, not cute, just efficient. Its roots hold water, and chewing one is like drinking the memory of a rainstorm. You learn quickly nothing grows out here without reason. If it blooms, it belongs. If it heals, it's remembered. If it harms, it's respected or avoided. Quirky side note. Some plants were used not to heal the body, but to test the spirit. There's a tale about a tree whose leaves, when burned, reveal whether someone's lying. Apparently, the smoke curls toward the guilty like an affectionate ghost. No one's tested you with it yet. Let's keep it that way. The elder hands you a leaf from a patchouli bush and raises an eyebrow. Stimulant, they say. Gives you a bit of a kick. You sniff it. It smells like regret and ambition. You pass. For now. In some desert groups, patchouli was chewed during long walks or given to warriors before battle. It contains nicotine-like alkaloids and was often mixed with ash to boost absorption. This is bush pharmacology, hardcore and ancient. The kind that doesn't come with side effects listed in small print, just wisdom whispered in firelight. The elder stops at a patch of dry-looking scrub. This one, they say, pointing used for love potions. You grin. Really, they nod serious. Helps the heart open and the stomach settle. That's important too. You laugh. They don't. Apparently, love and digestion go hand in hand. The sun climbs higher, and the scent of crushed leaves clings to your skin like perfume made by the earth itself. You're starting to feel a strange kind of trust in the plants around you, not in a Disney way, but in a "you've got my back if I don't mess this up" way. You kneel beside the elder and try mimicking their movements. Pinch here, twist there, never yank. Always ask, even if just with your eyes. They nod approval, but add gently, Knowing a plant isn't just knowing its name, it's knowing its moods. You pause, like, if it's cranky, exactly, they say, or too dry, or too young. Medicine picked too early can lie to you. That lands hard. Because maybe healing isn't about grabbing the first cure you see. Maybe it's about patience, about relationship, about sitting with discomfort long enough to ask it why it's here. You're offered one last leaf for the day, small, sharp-edged, with a silvery sheen. It tastes like tin and thunderstorms. You don't ask what it's for. You just sit with it on your tongue, feeling the land settle a little deeper inside your chest. The elder smiles. Now you've met the bush. Tomorrow, it starts talking back. The next day begins with fire. Not the roaring kind. Not the kind that devours whole hillsides and makes headlines. No, this fire is small, controlled, intentional. It crackles gently beneath a circle of stones as the elder arranges a curious combination of objects nearby: a carved stick, a lump of dried resin, something that looks suspiciously like a chunk of tree fungus, and a pouch made of kangaroo skin tied tight with woven grass. Sometimes, the elder says, feeding dried leaves into the flame, healing takes time and a little heat. You lean closer. The air smells spicy, smoky, rich with anticipation. This is where you learn about fire and fermentation. Two of the oldest tools in Aboriginal medicine, older than stone blades, older than human jealousy, older maybe than memory itself. Because while some cures are found fresh and plucked from the ground, others require patience. Transformation. You can't rush a good brew, and if you try, well, let's just say you might end up with a healing balm that acts more like a laxative. Not ideal. The elder unwraps the kangaroo skin pouch. Inside paste. Deep green, nearly black, smelling like sap and sleep. This one took 2 weeks, they say. Leaves pounded, soaked, buried near a termite mound, turned every day with the sun. You blink. Why the termite mound? Warmth, they reply. And the termites don't mind. They help, actually. There's a fringe belief out here that termites carry wisdom. Not metaphorical wisdom, actual knowledge absorbed from the soil and spat back out through their architecture. Some healers place medicine near termite nests, not only for warmth, but to let the land refine it. You suddenly feel bad for every bug you've ever squashed, without saying thanks. The elder scoops a fingertip of the dark paste and rubs it on your wrist. It's cool, sticky, and smells faintly of eucalyptus and honey. For swelling, they say. Good for when the joints scream. You nod. Your joints aren't screaming, but they've been known to mutter. Then they show you something even stranger, a small jar of yellow liquid, thick and slightly fizzy. Fermented bush apple, they say. Drink with caution. Heals the gut. Also, dreams get interesting. You lift the jar, sniff carefully. Sour, bright, electric. Don't chug it, they warn, unless you want to argue with your ancestors all night. You take a sip. Just a little. It tastes like vinegar married a mango, and they had a very opinionated child. You feel it in your spine. Alive. Like someone just knocked on the door of your stomach and said, "Hey, we're doing some spring cleaning in here. Fermentation." It turns out is more than food preservation. In Aboriginal medicine, it's a method of activating hidden properties. A way of softening harsh compounds, breaking down tough plant fibers, and releasing what the body can actually use. Mainstream historical fact, modern pharmacognosy, the study of medicinal plants, has confirmed that fermentation can enhance the bioavailability of certain compounds, making natural remedies more potent and easier to absorb. Aboriginal people were practicing this for centuries, long before the word probiotic appeared on overpriced yogurt. The elder continues their demonstration. A bundle of leaves is placed on a hot rock beside the fire. As they steam and curl, they release oils into a shallow bowl below. This one's for skin, they say. Burns, bites, bad memories. Bad memories, they nod. Some things live in the body too long. Oil helps them slip out. You file that away for later. Maybe a whole bottle of that oil might help with that one thing from that 1 year you never talk about. Next up, emu bush twigs once again. This time they're crushed and buried in ash for 3 days, then boiled down into a thick liquid. The elder calls it tongue water, for when words get stuck, they say. That sounds poetic, until you realize they mean literal speech loss after illness or trauma. The treatment is massaged onto the throat, under the chin, behind the ears. The belief that it nudges language back to the surface, that the body remembers how to speak if you ask it gently enough. Historians still debate whether these heat-based and fermented preparations should be seen as empirical science or cultural practice. Some argue the success lies in the ritual, not the remedy. Others insist the remedies stand on their own biochemical legs. The truth, they're holding hands, walking the same dusty track. The elder sets a handful of gray powder beside you. Burnt root, they explain. Good for poison, also good if you eat something you shouldn't have. You glance around, like what they smile. You'll know when it happens. Great. Then one final marvel, a stone bowl blackened by fire filled with what looks like clay. This, they say, is healer's mud. Like a spa. They raise an eyebrow. No. Like a reset button. The mixture includes burnt wood ash, fat, ground bark, and secret plant elements you're not allowed to know yet. It's used to draw sickness out through the skin, often painted in spirals or dots onto specific parts of the body. You watch as they gently coat the inside of their own elbow, humming low, rhythmic notes that seem to move with the application. Quirky tradition. In some groups, the spiral must always turn clockwise for healing and counterclockwise to release grief. No one's quite sure what happens if you mix it up. You're not going to be the one to test that theory. The fire burns low now. The sun is almost overhead. You've learned that not every medicine comes ready-made. Some need time transformation attention, and maybe that's part of the healing. The waiting, the crafting, the knowing that something has been made just for you, slowly, carefully, and with more reverence than any bottle on a shelf could hold. You hold the jar of fermented bush apple up to the light, watching it shimmer slightly in the sun. Drink the rest, you ask. The elder chuckles. Only if you want to meet a spirit with very strong opinions about your life choices. You smile. Cap it. Save it for a different day. You're not walking today. You're sitting. Cross-legged on woven grass mats under the shade of a twisted ironbark tree. The elder doesn't say much this morning. Instead, you're surrounded by women, some old enough to have skin like creased parchment, some young enough to still carry the laughter of children in their eyes. They're busy. Hands move with quiet urgency. Grinding, mashing, binding. One woman is slicing something with a shell edge. Another stirs a thick paste in a hollowed-out gourd. The air hums not just with insects, but with rhythm. A shared purpose. A shared knowing. This whispers the elder beside you is women's knowledge. And you shut up. Because you can already feel it. This is not a place where you interrupt. Across Aboriginal Australia, knowledge is gendered. Not just who knows what, but how it's used, how it's passed down, and most importantly, who's allowed to speak it aloud. Women carry medicine differently. They tend to the body in ways that aren't just about symptoms, but cycles. Blood, birth, loss, renewal. One woman gestures you over. She's got something bubbling gently in a clay pot. You recognize the smell lemon myrtle and crushed guandong fruit. But there's something else in there, a root she won't name. For women bleeding too much, she says not unkindly. You blink. Like, after injury, she smiles. No, like bleeding. Oh, right. Menstruation, pregnancy, miscarriage, childbirth. Things rarely mentioned in history books, unless someone wrote them in Latin. But here, these are central to medicine. Because what's more important than keeping life moving through its natural rhythms, a mainstream historical fact. Aboriginal midwives, long before colonization, had detailed birthing protocols using smoke pressure heat packs made from warmed stones and herbal infusions to ease labor pain. They kept women and babies alive in the bush without scalpels or steel. They also knew how to stop a labor and start one. You watch as a young woman ties a strip of paper bark around her belly. The bark listens, she says, adjusting it carefully. It knows how to hold the womb. No sarcasm, no giggles, just trust. Nearby, another woman is painting dots across her thigh using red ochre mixed with rendered fat. The design is simple, symmetrical. For strength, she explains. In the hips, for walking far, for carrying weight. You don't ask what kind of weight. You watch. Then something quieter happens. An older woman leans over a bundle in her lap. Inside, a baby asleep, wrapped in soft kangaroo skin. She dips her fingers in a small bowl of yellow oil and begins massaging the baby's feet. What's that, you ask softly. The elder answers warm oil made with emu fat and crushed desert fuchsia. Protects the lungs, calms fear, reminds the baby where it came from. Where it came from, she just nods. You don't push. A quirky belief here, some babies cry, not because they're hungry or tired, but because they miss the dreaming. The old world before this one. The oil, they say, helps them adjust to being human again. Helps them remember without hurting. You sit with that for a while. Further along, you spot something less peaceful. A woman is wrapping someone's ankle tight, careful. The foot is swollen, bruised, maybe broken. But there's no panic. Just a poultice, a song, and a lot of slow, deliberate silence. The song, you realize, is not random. It rises and falls in a pattern. You don't understand the words, but you feel their effect. Even you are breathing slower now. Historians still argue whether these healing songs were purely symbolic or had measurable neurological effects. But you don't need an EEG machine to know that when someone sings gently to pain, it flinches a little less. And it's not just medicine made from plants. Some is made from presence, from rhythm, from connection. You're handed a bowl next. Inside, crushed bush tomatoes thickened with what looks like charred wood. You sniff. It's tangy, earthy, oddly comforting. For when a woman's grief sits too deep, says the woman who gave it to you. You don't ask how a food can reach that far down. You just take a small spoonful. It tastes like something ancient remembered. Another woman brushes her fingers through the hair of a girl with feverish cheeks. She murmurs something, dips a cloth in herbal water, then lays it gently across the girl's brow. The cloth smells like river mint and ironbark sap. The fever fades by degrees. Healing here is layered. Physical, yes, but also emotional, communal, ritualized. It's not a pill you swallow alone. It's a dance. A recipe whispered across generations. A basket of bark-wrapped medicines passed from hand to heal a whole lineage. You hear laughter. Sharp reel ringing out from a knot of women teasing one another while grinding roots. You can't heal without joy, says the elder, half smiling. Body doesn't want to mend in silence. There's power in that. One woman leans over and gently flicks your forehead. Your thoughts are too loud, she says, grinning. You need tea. She brews it from ruby salt bush and native lemongrass. The steam smells like citrus and calm. You sip. you feel your brain unclench. Not everything is dramatic here. Not every treatment is a ritual. Sometimes healing is a warm drink in the right moment. A soft voice saying, "You're here now." You stay all afternoon. You don't speak unless spoken to. You observe. You learn that every leaf carries memory. Every root sings when crushed. Every woman here holds a universe in her hands, and she's not in a hurry to explain it. The elder watches you watching, then finally speaks. Tomorrow, she says, you'll meet the men. They're louder. Of course they are. The next day starts with dust. Not the lazy kind that drifts in on a breeze, but the kind that kicks up hard under dancing feet, clings to your calves, and makes every breath taste like red earth and muscle memory. You're at a ceremonial ground now, a cleared space edged by termite mounds, dry bark, and the faint outline of footprints too deep to be from just this generation. The elder doesn't speak. Today they only nod to the men seated in a loose circle around a low fire, their faces painted in ochre, their expressions unreadable. One of them gestures for you to sit. Men's business, someone says. You swallow a joke. Good instinct. This is not a show. This is not for your curiosity. This is sacred. And sacred here means serious quiet, and still very much alive. You sit. A carved spear rests across one man's knees. Beside him, a bundle of sharp stones, quartz blades, some dark, some milky, all gleaming faintly, even in the shaded morning light. You've stumbled into the intersection of healing and ceremony, where tools aren't just functional, they're spiritual conduits. One of the younger men unwraps a long coil of sinew, ties it around a curved bone, and begins threading what looks like a charm onto it. "This one's for protection," he murmurs, not quite looking at you. "Keeps the bad energy away when we call something out." Call something out, like a sickness, he clarifies, like you just asked it out loud. Maybe you did. You've arrived at the place where the line between medicine and magic is so blurry it might as well be a snake in tall grass. Here, healing isn't just plants and pastes. It's tools, chants, symbols, and sacred responsibility. One of the older men lifts a quartz shard and holds it to the sun. "For cutting poison," he says. You're about to ask what kind of poison, snakebite, infected wound, heartbreak, when he moves on. No explanations. Just truth. Mainstream historical fat quartz blades have been found in ancient Aboriginal burial sites, often associated with healers or clever men specialists believed to possess deep spiritual and medical knowledge. These tools weren't for hunting. They were for extraction, incision, and sometimes for revealing what was hidden beneath the skin, physically or otherwise. You watch as another man grinds charcoal with a flat stone, mixes it with water, and draws symbols onto the chest of someone lying supine in the dust. His eyes are closed, his breathing shallow. "What's happening?" you whisper. Pulling out fear comes the answer. From the chest, from wherever it hides. The design they paint isn't random. It spirals out from the heart up toward the throat, then down toward the stomach, following a pattern older than maps. You don't need to understand it. You just need to witness. There's a fringe story told among some desert mobs that certain men could see sickness as color. Not metaphorical aura stuff, literal color. A yellow glow in the knee, a black patch across the ribs. Healing wasn't diagnosis, it was vision. You wonder what color your fear is. Probably chartreuse, something annoying. Suddenly singing begins, not melody, something deeper. Raw, rhythmic. You feel it in your jawbone, not your ears. Two men begin a stomping pattern in the dust, their feet raising small clouds that catch the light like spells mid-formation. This is the calling, someone says. They're calling the sickness out. Not politely either. The chants are clipped, aggressive, insistent. You don't understand the words, but you get the message, we see you. Get out. One man steps forward with a fire stick charred wood still warm at one end. He draws a circle around the prone figure, not touching skin, just air. Smoke trails behind it. The symbolism is thick enough to breathe. Historians still argue whether these healing rituals should be classified as spiritual exorcisms or early psychosomatic therapy. But again, it's not either or, it's both and. These rituals heal not just the body, but the context the body lives in. They realign the patient with community, with land, with story. The quartz blade flashes once in the sun. It's used not to cut skin, but to slice through something unseen, waved above the chest like a knife over fabric. You flinch anyway. The man doesn't. The ritual ends suddenly. The chants stop. Dust settles. The patient exhales like he hasn't breathed in weeks. The painted man wipes the charcoal away with a handful of grass and whispers something into the wind. The sickness is gone. Or it's hiding again. Either way, the ritual's done. You're invited to help clean the tools. Not a small honor. You're shown how to rinse the quartz in salt water, how to smudge it with smoke, how to wrap it again in kangaroo hide so it sleeps safely. These blades are never left out, never treated like knives. They're companions, extensions of a deeper language. A younger man leans close and shows you his own bundlewood pieces carved into crescent shapes tied with possum fur string. Ear blocks, he says. For hearing the inside things, you raise a brow. What kind of inside things? He taps his chest, then his temples. The stuff that doesn't talk loud, but still wants out. You get it? Sort of. Then comes the sharing circle. They pass around a small bowl of bloodroot infusion, bitter red, spicy as regret. You sip. It jolts your tongue awake. Clears the mouth, someone says. Prepares it for truth. And suddenly everyone's talking. Not loudly, not wildly. Just honestly. Telling stories. Joking. Naming hurts. You realize that part of men's healing here is not just action, it's release. And you're sweating from more than the heat. Quirky tradition in some mobs, a boy's first fever is treated not just with herbs, but with a painted message left under his sleeping mat. If he dreams of the message, he's ready for manhood. If not, the fever stays. You wonder what your mat would say. You end the day feeling like you've just scrubbed something off your ribs you didn't know was stuck there. The elder claps a hand on your shoulder. You listened well, they say. That's rare. You smile. You don't say anything. You just nod like you're holding a tool now, too, even if no one can see it. You're walking alone now. Not because you've been abandoned. No one just hands you a map and says, good luck with the ancestors. But because sometimes healing requires space. And maybe a small amount of emotional confusion caused by things that crawl. The bush is quiet. Too quiet. Which is how you know something's definitely about to rustle. You've been told to keep your eyes open not just for plants this time, but for creatures. Because medicine out here doesn't just grow. Sometimes it scurries. You spot a trail of green ants marching along a branch, all business and no patience. You lean closer. Careful, says a voice behind you. Turns out you're not that alone. They'll bite. But they'll also save you. Green ants, Acophila smaragdina, if you're trying to impress a botanist, are an aboriginal staple in both food and medicine. When crushed, their abdomens release citric acid with antiviral properties. Mix that with a bit of warm water and boom bush cough syrup. Mainstream fact. Their high vitamin C content and natural antiseptic oils are recognized by modern science, even if they taste like someone squeezed a lime over a wasp. You're handed one. You hesitate. Bite it before it bites you, they say. You do? It's tart. Sharp. Weirdly effective. You feel a bit like you just licked a battery, but in a good way. Insects aren't the only ones on the list. You're shown a patch of ground where a certain beetle likes to burrow. When dug up carefully, its inner parts are used in infusions to treat skin infections. But only by people who know how you're warned. Otherwise, burning rash. Right. There's a fringe tale about a young man who tried to use the beetle mix himself without asking permission, ended up running through the bush screaming, covered in hives and regret. The moral: ask first, always. Further on, you reach a waterhole. Shallow silty surrounded by reeds. Something croaks. Loudly. Frog medicine, someone says from behind you. An older woman now walking barefoot, steady as weather. You spot the frog, plump, greenish-brown, unbothered. Apparently its secretions are collected, no, not like that, don't be gross, and used to treat skin irritations. In some regions, frogs were seen as rain bringers and spirit carriers. Their sudden appearance after drought, a sign. Their croaks at dusk, a signal. Also, she adds, if you sleep near one, you'll dream clean. Clean, like you rinsed your head out with song. You nod. No further questions. You keep walking. Now ants again. This time sugarbag bees. Tiny native bees that don't sting, only bless. Their honey is thick, medicinal, often stored in tree hollows. It's gathered carefully, rarely in bulk, and always with gratitude. This isn't honey for toast. This is honey for wounds, for ulcers, for sacred uses. You're allowed a fingertip taste. It's sweet, yes, but smoky herbal like sunshine, with a memory. And then there's maggots. Yeah. Sorry. You knew we had to go here eventually. Blowfly larvae, when applied properly, clean infected wounds by eating necrotic tissue while leaving healthy skin untouched. Aboriginal people have known this for generations. Western medicine caught on centuries later, often under the name maggot debridement therapy, which sounds way too fancy for a bug buffet. You don't pick just any maggot, the woman says. You ask the land to send the right ones. You're not sure how that works. You're not sure you want to know. But the logic is airtight. The bush has its own cleanup crew, and sometimes healing is unpleasant. Nature isn't squeamish. Why should you be? There's even a tale, a weird one, about a dying man who lay beneath a carcass, letting maggots fall on him for 3 days. Came out healed, smelled terrible, but lived another 20 years, never once caught a cold again. Allegedly. You pause beneath a tree heavy with nests. Feathers flutter. Birds too, says your guide. They tell us things. How they build high when storms come. They sing different when someone's sick. So diagnosis, but with wings. You watch a kookaburra chuckle from a branch. Apparently, if it laughs before sunrise, rain is coming. If it doesn't, you'd better carry water. Some believe certain bird calls align with emotional states. One specific cry is said to indicate heartbreak. Another, healing in progress. Historians still argue whether this animal-based knowledge was symbolic, observational, or pure myth. But honestly, if you see a frog hear a bird get bitten by an ant and then magically recover from a fever, maybe don't argue with the ecosystem. Then comes something stranger. Your guide shows you a pouch made of woven bark. Inside, small bones. Animal, bird, maybe reptile. They're carved, inked, oiled. What's this? She holds one up. Dreaming medicine. For when sickness hides behind the eyes. She rubs the bone, gently whispers to it, then returns it to the pouch. No spell casting. No lightning. Just reverence. A quirky belief from up north. Crocodile dung dried and powdered was once mixed with fat and used as sunscreen. Effective unclear. Disgusting undeniably. But in a land where the sun burns through clouds, you do what you must. You're learning now that bush medicine isn't just green and growing. It walks, swims, buzzes. It wears scales. It burrows. It hums at midnight when you're half asleep and not quite sure if the lizard you just saw was real. The land is alive, and the things that live on it, no matter how small or squirmy, might just carry the cure. You end the day covered in dust, ant bites, and a new appreciation for things you'd usually squash on sight. The elder finds you, nods once. You didn't scream, they say. Not loudly, you reply. They grin. Then you're ready for the next part, which, given the way the moon is rising fat and golden, sounds slightly ominous. Night comes quietly here. No neon, no humming street lamps. Just the slow spill of moonlight across baked ground, and the steady pulse of crickets sounding like the world breathing in its sleep. You're led under stars now, down a narrow path between tall ghost gums. Their pale bark glows in the dark like bone, or memory, or both. The elder walks ahead silent until the trees part and you see it. A waterhole, still black glass-like. Not large, not deep, but important. You feel that before anyone says it. This, they finally speak, is a healing place. You step closer. The surface reflects constellations you don't recognize, only because you never looked at them from this side of the world. The air cools your cheeks. The ground feels softer here, as if it remembers every foot that ever approached it with intention. Some call it spirit water, your guide says. Some say it listens. Some say it decides. Decides what, if you're meant to leave healed or stay to become something else. Right. No pressure. Waterholes across Australia aren't just geographical features. In many Aboriginal cultures, they're sacred, sites of origin stories, portals to the dreaming, places where ancestors emerged, fought, died, wept, and transformed. And in that transformation, they left medicine. You sit beside the water, careful not to shift the earth too much. A small pouch is handed to you inside a mix of crushed lily root charcoal and wild mint. You add it to the water. It dissolves slowly, sending thin streams of gray-green cloud spiraling across the surface. This mix, the elder explains, was used for sadness. For the kind that sits in your lungs. You breathe in deeply. The mint finds your nose first, then the smoke-like scent of charcoal. Then something else, earthy, almost floral. You feel like something is loosening between your ribs. Mainstream fact. Several native water plants like Nymphaea violacea, a type of water lily, have been found to contain alkaloids with potential calming and pain-relieving effects. Aboriginal people didn't need a journal article to figure that out. You're invited to touch the water now, just your fingertips. The coolness is immediate. A shock, then a calm, like dipping your hand into silence. And then, without warning, the elder begins to hum. Low, rhythmic, soft. You've heard singing before, chanting, even laughter. But this is different. This is old. Like the song itself is made of the same dust as the stars above. It echoes around the waterhole, bouncing gently off rock and bark and skin. You feel it in your bones. This is where stories go, they say, between notes, when they've done their job. And suddenly it makes sense. The plants, the animals, the tools, they all bring the body back into rhythm. But the land catches what's left behind. Grief, worry, things unspoken. It soaks them up, processes them, and eventually turns them into something useful, like salt or stillness. You notice carvings on the nearby rocks, spirals, tracks, symbols you can't decode. Your guide sees you looking. Each one is a record of someone who healed or someone who helped. A fringe belief holds that each time someone heals at a sacred site, A ripple enters the water, visible only to spirits, but lingering forever. The more ripples, the more powerful the place becomes, which they say is why some waterholes sparkle without sun. You lean down. This one sparkles, not dramatically, not like movie magic, just subtly, like it remembers joy. You're handed a small dish of clay now, wet, cool, smelling of iron and grass. Paint your hands, they say. You do. Slowly, the clay sticks to your skin darker than you expected. Feels grounding, like you're wearing part of the story. Then you press your palms onto the stone beside you. It leaves 2 clean marks. The elder nods. Now the place remembers you too. It's not about ego, not about legacy. It's about continuity. You came, you listened. You're part of the land's memory now, even if you never return. A soft breeze brushes your face. People come here, they say, when the body's broken, yes. But more when the spirit's tangled. The water doesn't fix you. It just tells the truth. You look at the reflection again. You see yourself. But softer. Quieter. A version of you without the clenched jaw or the invisible suitcase of worry you always carry around like it's part of your outfit. You sit until the moon reaches its peak. You don't speak. You don't want to. Historians still argue whether these sites were chosen for their beauty, their acoustics, or their spiritual resonance. Maybe all 3, maybe they just knew that certain curves of land held memory better than others, that water can be a mirror and a cure. The elder touches your shoulder. Time to leave. You walk back slowly barefoot, feeling each root, each rock like it's part of a puzzle you're only just beginning to solve. Just before you vanish into the trees again, you look back. The water is still, but you swear it's still holding your reflection. You walk in circles now. Not because you're lost, although yes, you did take a wrong turn behind a termite mound and end up knee-deep in philosophical confusion, but because circles are sacred here. Healing doesn't move in a straight line. It spirals, returns, revisits. You're not going backward, you're just passing through the same lesson again from a different angle. You arrive at a campfire ringed with old stones. Waiting there is a woman you've never met before. She doesn't look up. She's tracing a shape into the dust with her thumb. She says one word, both. You sit. She continues. Some people ask, is it medicine or is it magic? She shrugs. It's both. Aha. You've entered the magic or medicine zone. This is where the lines blur, where science folds into ceremony, where the leaf cures your fever, but only if you gather it during the waxing moon from a plant that's been sung to for 3 days straight by someone who knows how to ask nicely. Seems like a lot of steps for a fever reducer. But out here, steps matter. She offers you a piece of bark, burned smooth, marked with blackened symbols. What's this? She smiles. Memory. It's a healing stick, used in some groups to absorb illness. You hold it against the affected area. It's said to pull the sickness into itself. Afterward, it's buried far from the camp, not discarded, buried, because whatever it absorbed still has teeth. Mainstream historical fact. Many Aboriginal healing rituals include symbolic transfer of illness into smoke water or object. Modern psychology might call this externalization, turning internal pain into something visible, something manageable. In both cases, it works more than you'd think. She points to a pile of small stones, each wrapped in cloth. Those are word bundles, she says. People whisper what hurts them, tie it up and leave it. What happens then, if the bundle stays quiet, it's healed. If it unties itself, it's not ready. You blink, wait, it unties itself. She shrugs again. Sometimes the wind has opinions. There's a fringe tale about a man who buried 3 bundles for 3 different regrets. The first stayed buried. The second was carried off by ants. The third came back to him in a dream, open glowing. He woke with a cough he never recovered from. People say he spoke too soon. It's all a little eerie, but also comforting. Because the idea here isn't to fix things, it's to move them, shift the burden, change the shape of suffering until it fits in your hand or a pouch or the palm of someone else who can carry it for a while. You're handed another object, a carved stone with a hole in the middle. Blow through it, she says. You do. The air whistles soft and warm. Now imagine, she whispers, that what left you was pain. Historians still argue whether Aboriginal healing relied more on belief or biology. Whether the rituals helped because people believed they would, or because the practices were effective regardless. But isn't belief a kind of effectiveness? She gives you a sprig of astringent-smelling leaves. Use this only if the sadness is sharp, she says. If it's wide, try bark tea instead. You look confused, she explains. Sharp sadness stings and sits in the mouth. Wide sadness pulls the back of the eyes. Different cures. This taxonomy doesn't exist in any clinical manual, but it should. Later, a young boy approaches with a jar of cloudy liquid. You brace for a taste test, but instead he dips a twig into it and draws a mark on your arm. For knowing, he says solemnly. You ask what's in it. He just grins. Plant secrets. Plant secrets. Nice. The mark itches for a minute, then cools. A small part of you is convinced you now know the secrets of the universe. Another part of you wonders if this is how werewolves happen. But nothing sprouts. So you're good. The woman lights a small fire beside you. Not for warmth, for telling. Speak something you haven't said aloud, she says. You hesitate, but eventually you do. Just a few words. A name, maybe. A sentence that once felt too heavy to carry in daylight. The fire pops, accepts it. She nods. Now it's somewhere else. You feel lighter, slightly suspicious, but undeniably lighter. Quirky tradition. In some regions, if a person couldn't express their pain directly, a family member would do it on their behalf, whispering their suffering into a shell, then smashing it. Symbolic therapy with a bit of flair. As night deepens, stars crowd the sky. You're invited to sit inside a chalked circle. Around you, sticks, stones, bones, leaves. Not random. Placed with purpose. You're in the medicine map now, someone says. The elder walks the circle, slowly touching each object, speaking its purpose. One for clarity, one for strength. One to remove false dreams, one to invite real ones. Lie down, they say. You do. Someone hums. Someone fans smoke over your chest. Someone else lays a smooth rock on your stomach and presses down just enough to remind you you're here. And then, stillness. The kind that doesn't ask questions. The kind that answers them before you even knew what to ask. When you open your eyes, the rock is gone. The hum is gone. But something stayed. You don't know if it was magic, or medicine, or both. You just know something in you feels like it stopped running. Morning comes with no fanfare. Just light leaking into the edges of your vision and the quiet realization that something's shifted. You stretch bones creaking and realize you're sore in places you didn't even know had nerves. Healing is exhausting. No one mentions that. But the elder's already waiting. Today, they say softly, we talk about forgetting. Not yours. The world's. You follow them down a narrow path flanked by charred tree trunks and brittle grass. It feels different here. Sadder, heavier, like the land is watching but from a distance. This, the elder continues, is where things were taken. You're in the space where colonization entered the room like an uninvited guest, flipped the table, and then demanded the recipe for the stew it just spilled. And that's the polite version. Before European arrival, Aboriginal healing practices thrived diverse across more than 250 language groups, passed down orally adapted for local climate and species. After colonization, not so much. Western settlers brought their own ideas of medicine, sterile, clinical, often dismissive. If it didn't come in a bottle or with a Latin name, it was branded superstition. Entire systems of healing bush medicine, songline spirit treatments, were labeled primitive, dangerous, even illegal. Mainstream historical fact. In the 1800s and early 1900s, traditional Aboriginal healers known in various communities as Ngangkari, Kurdaicha, Marngich, and other titles were persecuted. Some were arrested. Their practices were banned or forcibly replaced. Children were taken from their families, not just losing culture, but losing healing. Imagine that. Being sick. And also being told the only people who knew how to help you were wrong. Erased. Unsafe. The elder kneels and pulls a bundle from the earth. It's wrapped in a faded cloth smelling faintly of smoke and time. Inside old tools, a smooth stone, a feather, a strip of bark with faint paint lines. These, they whisper, were hidden. Buried during the height of the crackdowns when practicing traditional medicine could mean punishment. Healers passed their tools to others in secret. Some carved instructions into bark and tucked them into caves. Others encoded knowledge in lullabies, pretending they were just songs for sleep. There's a fringe tale about a woman who disguised her healing bundles as toys. She carried them in a pram, humming dreaming songs under her breath, while white officials walked past, none the wiser. You stand in that silence for a while. It tastes like grief. But not only grief. See, the elder says we didn't forget. We hid. We waited. The land remembers. And it remembers who listens. You walk again this time past the ruins of an old mission building. Stone walls, half-collapsed weeds reclaiming the floor. This was once a place where Aboriginal children were forced to learn English wear wool in 40-degree heat and ignore every story their grandparents told them. They were taught to wash with soap, not smoke. Taught to fear plants, not revere them. Taught to look outward for help instead of inward or downward or to the wind. And yet, the knowledge endured. In whispered side lessons, in nighttime ceremonies miles from camp, in laughter that sounded like gossip but was actually pharmacology. Historians still debate how much bush medicine was truly lost during colonization. Some believe large portions survived in secret. Others argue that irreversible gaps now exist, especially in areas where languages were forcibly wiped. But all agree something precious was nearly broken. You sit beneath a twisted mulga tree and listen to the breeze. The elder pours a small pouch of seeds into your hand. This one, they say, we thought was gone, until an elder remembered it in a dream. Said her mother rubbed it on her knees when she cried as a girl. Took 10 years to find it again. 10 more to grow it back. You hold the seeds like they might shatter. Because honestly, they might. That's the fragile truth here. These medicines don't live in freezers. They don't get archived in folders or filed in clinics. They live in lungs and lullabies, in taste and touch. In bodies that remember. And when those bodies are taken, the knowledge risks going with them. There's a bush nearby with red berries. You're warned not to touch. That one, the elder says, was used once, then forgotten. Now, no one's sure how. Quirky story. Some believe certain plants withheld their knowledge during colonization, refused to bloom, refused to heal, and quiet, waiting as if holding their breath until someone worthy returned. You reach a riverbank and see a woman kneeling in the mud, collecting reeds. She hums. She's young, but the tune is old. She learned from her auntie, the elder says. One of the lucky ones. Lucky because her line survived. Her knowledge wasn't scrubbed out with boarding school bleach or silenced behind police uniforms. Her body became a library, and she's now lending it to the future. You sit beside her. She hands you a reed. You peel it together. She says the inside threads, when dried, can be woven into binding for medicine bundles. Strong, flexible, unbreakable if braided properly. Sounds like a metaphor. You ask if she ever uses Western medicine. She nods. Sure, antibiotics help. But if I don't also sing the place where the sickness came from, it comes back. And that might be the sharpest line in the sand. Western medicine often treats symptoms. Bush medicine. It treats meaning. The elder rises. We lost much, they say, but not everything. And what we have left, it listens. You leave the riverbank knowing that healing isn't just about using the right leaf. It's about keeping the people who remember that leaf alive long enough to pass it on. And it's about listening when they speak, especially when they whisper. You're sitting in someone's backyard now. Not in the bush, not under stars, not beside a sacred waterhole. Just a backyard chain-link fence, cracked concrete, a few mismatched chairs, and a fire drum rusted by years of family barbecues. But the smell in the air, lemon myrtle, burning sandalwood, and a faint sweetness like wattle seed biscuits baking somewhere nearby. This isn't ancient country. This is suburbia. And yet, it's still medicine. A woman in jeans and an apron hands you a mug of something steaming. It smells like old stories and recent joy. Drink, she says. It won't fix your life, but it'll help your stomach not care for a little while. You smile, sip. The healing here looks different, less ceremonial, more casual, but it's no less powerful. Welcome to the world of revival and resilience. The quiet renaissance of Aboriginal bush medicine across modern kitchens, hospitals, and hearts. In the decades following cultural suppression, many Aboriginal families began reclaiming their traditions, not in the wild, but in the everyday. Grandma's remedy for chest coughs, uncle's eucalyptus balm. Aunties who never stopped foraging just started calling it going for a walk when the neighbors asked. Mainstream historical fact. Since the late 20th century, there's been a growing resurgence of interest in bush medicine, not just in Aboriginal communities, but among researchers, health practitioners, and even big brands looking to bottle the wisdom. But for many elders, revival isn't about commercial success. It's about survival. It's about repairing a chain that was nearly broken link by whisper link by firelight. You watch as two teenage boys help their grandmother prepare a sow. She's laughing at them for slicing the bark too thick, but there's pride behind the teasing. They're paying attention, with their hands, not just their eyes. Nearby, a young woman stirs herbs in a saucepan over a camp stove. She's explaining to her daughter the difference between river mint and peppermint. Same freshness, totally different vibe. One knows where it's from, she says. The other's just showing off. And that's the heart of it. Bush medicine isn't just about ingredients. It's about context, about place, about roots that run in two directions, into soil and into story. You ask one of the older women when she first started teaching bush healing again. She shrugs, never stopped. Just stopped saying it out loud for a while. You nod. That tracks. The rise of cultural safety programs in healthcare over recent years has allowed more Aboriginal patients to speak openly about traditional remedies, integrating them with Western treatments instead of being forced to choose. But it's a fragile balance. One nurse tells you it's not about picking one side, it's about building a bridge and making sure no one falls off it. You watch her prep a patient for surgery with antiseptic and bandages, but also pause to let an elder burn cleansing leaves nearby. No clash, just cooperation. The room smells like disinfectant and gum leaves, and somehow it works. There's a quirky story here, a true one. A rural clinic allowed a Ngankari traditional healer to join morning rounds. One day, after 3 failed IV attempts on a young child, the healer whispered something touched the boy's shoulder, and the next try slipped in like water. Coincidence, maybe. Or maybe the veins listened better when they felt seen. In another house, you're shown a drawer labeled First Aid. Inside, eucalyptus oil tea tree paste, crushed kwandong tablets, and a folded piece of paper covered in recipes written in shaky hand. Medicine from memory, medicine in handwriting. Medicine passed down between generations like birthday cards that smell faintly of menthol. Historians still debate how to archive living knowledge. Can oral traditions be preserved without flattening them? Can you catalog something that evolves every time it's told? This one scholar suggested recording every plant, every recipe, every healing method into a national database. But many elders resisted. Why put spirit in a spreadsheet, one asked. And honestly, fair point. Because revival doesn't mean freezing things in amber. It means using them, letting the practice breathe, letting your niece grind the leaves even if she spills half, letting your grandson mispronounce the name of a herb until one day he doesn't. You visit a school in the city where Aboriginal language classes include units on healing plants. Kids draw lemon-scented gums and label them in 5 dialects. A small girl explains to you with great authority that emu bush smells yuck, but fixes sore mouths. You believe her. Later, you're back in a garden this time, planted intentionally with native medicinal species. Not wild, but carefully tended. Carefully. Someone's attempt to reclaim not just knowledge, but space. Space for ceremony. Space for old wisdom. Space to unlearn what colonization taught, namely that natural is naive, that isolation is cleaner than connection. You watch a young father teach his son how to crush gum leaves without bruising them. Gentle, he says. The plant gives more when you ask. You think back to everything you've learned, the smokes, the stories, the ants, the songs. It all comes back to asking. Asking the land, asking each other, asking yourself if maybe healing starts long before the sickness shows up and continues long after the body feels better. You sip more of that lemon myrtle tea. It's cold now, still works. You're not in a backyard this time. You're in a lab, a clean one. Too clean, maybe. White walls, white coats. The sharp smell of sterilizer and ambition. Beakers, pipettes, microscopes, the modern altars of science. And yet, in the center of a polished bench, a small, dried piece of bush leaf. You're here because modern research is finally catching up. The West, so long convinced it had the only correct answers, has started whispering the question it once shouted over. What if they were right? You sit beside a woman in glasses and gloves who points to a petri dish where bacteria is busy dying. That's tea tree oil, she says. From the leaves the aunties used. Works better than half the store-bought antiseptics we've tested. You nod. You already knew that. So did thousands of Aboriginal healers before this woman's great-great-grandmother was born. Mainstream historical fact. Since the 1980s, Australian institutions have increased formal research into native plants used in Aboriginal medicine. Results? Dozens of species have shown antimicrobial, anti-inflammatory, antifungal, and analgesic properties. Some are being explored as the basis for new pharmaceuticals. The lab tech shows you another slide, bacteria growth suppressed by eucalyptus oil. Another one showing native lemongrass with fever-reducing compounds nearly identical to aspirin. We're not discovering, she says. We're just confirming. And that's the difference. Discovery implies you found something first. Confirmation means you finally listened. The tension is thick, though. Some researchers still treat bush medicine like folklore, she admits. They want proof. Double-blind, peer-reviewed proof. And that's fine. But healing doesn't always show up well under a microscope. Outside the lab, you meet a university professor working on a project with Aboriginal elders to record plant knowledge on their terms. The rules: no sharing without permission, no publishing sacred uses, and always return the research to the community that gave it. Too much has already been taken, she says. This time we ask, you nod. Again. Still a good idea. She tells you a story a company once tried to patent a compound from a native plant used in Aboriginal contraception rituals. Didn't ask, just filed papers. It was blocked eventually, but the damage was done. That's called biopiracy, and it's a real problem. So now many Aboriginal communities are working directly with researchers, setting the rules, guiding the process, deciding what gets shared and what stays secret. One group has partnered with a hospital to reintroduce bush smoke ceremonies into palliative care, helping patients die peacefully with culture intact. The nurses report lower anxiety, better rest, fewer painkiller requests. Coincidence doesn't matter, says one nurse. If the patient smiles after the smoke, that's the result. You visit a research farm, next plot after plot of native plants being cultivated for study. Emu bush, native mint bush, tomatoes, dessert kwandong. Not being extracted, not being exploited, just grown with intention, a new kind of sacred field. One elder oversees the project. She stands beside a patch of spinifex, arms crossed. Some of these plants are shy, she says. Won't bloom unless they hear their name. You laugh. She doesn't. And honestly, that might be true. Fringe story. In one research site, a certain bush refused to flower year after year. Until one of the scientists, part Aboriginal himself, sang to it in language. It bloomed within a week. Scientists still argue whether it was the rainfall, the soil chemistry, or the singing. You already know what the land would say. Historians and scientists now sit in the same circle as healers. Not always comfortably, not always equally, but more often than before. They try to classify antibacterial here, anti-inflammatory there. It helps with funding, helps with policy. But you notice something. Every time someone really understands a plant, really feels what it does, they stop talking like scientists. They start sounding like poets. This one eases pain, a researcher says, but only if you ask gently. This one works for sadness, but just the kind that's shaped like a house with no door. You realize the language of healing was never just data. It was metaphor. It was relationship. It was science dressed in story. You sit beside a young Aboriginal student cataloging seed samples. He tells you he's studying botany and bush medicine simultaneously. One hand in the future, the other buried in sacred soil. I want to be a doctor, he says, but I want to use both maps. And isn't that the way forward? Not throwing out one system for another, but recognizing that maybe the map you've been using had blank spots, not because the knowledge didn't exist, but because someone else had it, and you never asked. You leave the research center with a bag of dried leaves, a few notes, and the very distinct sense that the elders were never guessing. They knew. They know. The only thing that's changed is that the rest of the world is finally ready to admit it. You're walking through ash today. Not the burned kind that makes headlines. This is the soft gray powder left behind by a slow fire, the sort meant to clear space, not destroy it. The earth feels cleaner underfoot, lighter, ready. Time to talk about healing the land, says the elder beside you, because it's not just you that's sick. You pause, look around. Trees scorched but standing, tiny green shoots pushing through cracks. The kind of fragile hope that doesn't need words to explain itself. This is where we explore healing the land, healing ourselves, because out here, those are the same thing. In Aboriginal tradition, country isn't just a place. It's a being, an ancestor, a parent, a story in progress. And when country hurts through drought, pollution, deforestation, or neglect, it's not an environmental issue. It's personal. You walk past a dried creek bed. It looks dead, but the elder kneels and points. See the way the soil lifts there. Water passed here not long ago. It's not lost, just waiting. Waiting. Like so much else. They hand you a seed pod. Planting this isn't just planting, they say. It's returning a story to the earth. So you do. You push it into the soil, cover it with warm ash, and whisper, not sure what to say. But feeling like silence would be the wrong choice. That's part of it too, giving back. Voice, giving back, presence. Mainstream historical fact, Aboriginal land management techniques, including controlled burning and rotational harvesting, maintained biodiversity and reduced catastrophic wildfires for tens of thousands of years. These methods are now being revisited too late for some forests, just in time for others. You burn the land wrong, the elder says, it screams. You burn it right, it sings. You remember the rhythm of that gentle fire from earlier sections. Smoke not as destruction, but as dialogue. Healing in this worldview is never one-sided. You don't just take medicine from the land. You tend to it. You feed it songs. You pull out weeds. You move gently so it stays generous. There's a place you're led to next, bare wide and strangely quiet. Not sacred, not alive. Just ignored. This is what forgetting looks like, they whisper. No bird calls, no ants. The kind of emptiness that feels deliberate, like a room closed off after grief. And here's where things get uncomfortable, because this isn't just about fire or erosion. It's about stolen land, broken connections, medicines that once grew here now gone, spirit that once danced here now faded, but not gone forever. Quirky belief, some elders say that when a child plants a native seed with love, an ancestor hears it. If they're pleased, the plant grows twice as fast. You ask if it works with adults. They smile. Only the ones who remember how to act like children. So you try. You plant again. This time with both hands. The elder teaches you to read the wind, not metaphorically. Literally, the way it shifts around trees, the way it changes before rain, the way it carries messages between burnt stumps and new shoots. Land talks, they say, but only if you stop talking first. You learn to step lightly, to test the soil with your toes, to place rocks so water can find its old paths again. Historians still argue whether Aboriginal land care was intentional agriculture or just intuitive living. But let's be real, if you can feed your community, protect the soil, prevent bushfires, and still have time to carve stories into bark, that's not a happy accident. Later, you visit a community project where young people are replanting native species in an area once bulldozed for cattle. They're laughing, working barefoot, singing in bursts. This used to be medicine ground, one girl tells you. Now we're making it medicine again. She shows you a row of saplings, sandalwood, wattle, kurrajong. They fix the dirt, she says. Then the dirt fixes us. Simple. Perfect. One man adds a thought. When the water is poisoned, so are the stories. When the trees grow back, the elders start dreaming better. And now it clicks. The point of this isn't just conservation, it's restoration of language, of ceremony, of memory held in root and resin. You remember the dreaming paths, the healing sites, the plants that refused to bloom. You remember the termite mounds that kept poultices warm, the water that held your reflection like it cared. It was never just about your body. It was about belonging. You helped build a stone circle around a newly planted herb patch, not for protection, for intention. Each stone faces a cardinal direction, north for breath, east for clarity, south for stillness, west for return. Return to what you ask, to listening, they say. And somehow, in this dusty circle under a sky smeared with late sunlight and ash, you feel more whole than you ever have in a hospital. You've healed something. Not completely, not perfectly, but a fracture is closing. You feel it under your feet. The land thanks you in the way it always does, not with words, but with a sudden breeze that smells like growth. You inhale, exhale, and promise silently, I'll keep planting. You're standing at the edge now, not of a cliff, not of the bush, but of something else, something older than both. The journey's nearly done, but the path hasn't ended. It just loops, because that's how stories work here. They don't conclude. They continue through you. The elder gestures to a circle of stones once more familiar now, but this one's different. Each rock is painted, not just ochre patterns or symbols you don't understand, but fingerprints. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, smudged, stacked, overlapping. You are the story now, the elder says. You blink. Wait. You, yes. Because healing doesn't belong to the past. It walks beside the living. Every footstep, every plant touched, every breath drawn with respect adds another verse to the great and endless medicine song. A young boy approaches. He's got a notebook, the spiral kind, and he's drawing something between the lines. Not superheroes, not dinosaurs. Leaves, detailed, labeled, annotated in both English and language. You crouch beside him. What's that one bloodwood, he says proudly. Sap helps with cuts. And also, dreams better. You nod. Good dreams, he shrugs. Depends on what your brain's been doing. Fair. Nearby, two women laugh as they stir something in a billy can. You recognize the scent, native lemongrass and river mint. The classic duo. They're brewing it for the local clinic. The staff asked for more. Not for their patients, for themselves. Better than coffee, one says. And doesn't make your hands shake when you're stressed. You walk the grounds of this small but growing healing center. It's not flashy, not corporate. No glass doors or cold lighting. Just tin roof painted walls, shelves full of jars, and baskets full of bark. And yet, it feels like a cathedral. Because this space was made with care. Because the floor remembers every barefoot step that came here for medicine and left with something more. Mainstream historical fact. Aboriginal community-controlled health organizations, ACHOs, now operate across Australia, integrating traditional knowledge with Western health services. Many are staffed by Aboriginal people for Aboriginal people rooted in culture, language, and country. You meet one of the directors. She tells you something that hits hard. You can't heal the body if the culture's still bleeding. She doesn't say it with sadness, just with precision, like a scalpel, a truth held steady. And that's when it lands. This isn't just about fixing wounds. It's about restoring relationship between people, between land, between time. You sit beneath a gum tree with an elder who lights a small fire in a tin. Just a few leaves. Not a ceremony, just a habit. Smoke keeps the memory alive, he says. Reminds the plants we're still here. You watch the smoke curl upward. Looks like a story trying to return home. There's a fringe tale you hear before you go of a girl who wandered too far from country and fell sick. No one could help her. Until one night, a kookaburra laughed outside her window so loud it startled her awake. The next morning she asked to go home. As soon as her feet touched the dirt, she grew up on her fever broke. No medicine was given, just soil. You ask, did that really happen? The elder smiles. Every week, in different ways. You think back to your own sicknesses, not just physical ones. The kind that sits behind the eyes. The weight that doesn't register on a scale. And you wonder how much of that came from disconnection, from silence, from forgetting. You leave the center with a jar of bush balm and a folded paper of instructions. Not just dosages, rituals. When to apply, how to breathe when you do, what to listen for. And a final note, always thank the plant. You drive back to the city. Your boots carry dust now, real dust, ash, sand, maybe a little memory too. You walk into your home and it feels different. Not wrong, just louder, buzzing, wired, fast. You set the bomb beside your bed. You light a eucalyptus stick, not for scent, for reconnection. And as you sit in the quiet, you realize the bush isn't out there. It's not just wilderness. It's not just ancient. It's within you now. Every breath, every pause, every time you choose to listen instead of fix. That's medicine too. Let your breath slow. Let the air grow softer. You've traveled far tonight, across smoke and soil, between story and science, past beetles and dreaming tracks and eucalyptus trees that whisper even when no one's near. You've felt the sting of green ants and the weight of forgotten tools. You've sat with the women, and their quiet power stood with the men, and their stone blade honesty dipped your fingers in spirit water and laid your fear gently into ash. Now it's time to rest. Close your eyes and imagine the gum trees swaying above you. Hear the creak of bark, the rustle of leaves sharing secrets, the hum of cicadas keeping rhythm with the earth's slow heartbeat. Feel the dust still clinging to your skin, not dirt, but belonging. You've carried a lot, maybe too much. But here's the truth, you don't have to hold it all alone. The land remembers. The land forgives. The land, if you let it, will carry some of it for you. And tomorrow, when you wake, the medicine continues. In your footsteps, in your words, in your willingness to look at a leaf and wonder, what story do you carry? You don't need to be an expert, just a listener, just a caretaker, just a part of the story now. So rest easy. Let the song lines hold you tonight. Let the healing wrap around your heart like smoke, curling through the branches. You're home. Sweet dreams.